Well, it's December 9th, 2024, and we're here at the smaller Colorado River here in Texas, just about where Camp Creek comes into it. And I just wanted to show you the artifice of the ancients, the advanced races who built the continents from the creek beds and riverbeds up. So we see these straight lines, right, that are supposed to be cracks, as academia calls them. Here's another virtually straight line that doglegs into another straight line. These are supposed to be cracks. One would wonder if this is sedimentary material, as academia tells us, that these are layers, right? Laid down across time. Why would this section face be vertical? Why would it be regular? How is nature making a vertical, regular-sided face, and again here, vertical, regular-sided face, in sedimentary material? If this were a crack, as academia tells us it must be, all of these lines must be cracks that came later, then you would see, when you see the section face, you would see a jagged, irregular face. You would never have a regular face like that. It just wouldn't happen. Impossible. Because nature, if it was a crack, or a joint fracture as academia calls them, if these were joint fractures, the fracture would find a weakness in the material. And that weakness would never be straight-sided, regular-sided. Right? This is regular. It's not perfectly straight or perfectly vertical, right? It's curving. Interesting, right? But it's still a basically regular-sided face. That would never happen if this were natural. The geologists just don't care. Their theory doesn't allow them to ask the question, is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? Right? Geologists and all earth sciences academics have a false premise at the base of their thinking and of all their research and of all their writing. And that false premise is that we are the first advanced race in the universe. Really? That's a bold assumption to base everything you do on. So, if we're the first advanced race in the universe, their thinking goes, then everything we see in the natural world must be natural. It must have come into existence through natural forces, because we didn't build any of this. We didn't build this riverbed. We know we didn't, right? So this must have come into existence through natural forces because there were no other advanced races around to build a riverbed, a continent, 6 continents, a planet, the sun, solar systems, galaxies, space, life forms. We didn't build any of those things, and if you believe that we are the first advanced race in the universe, then everything we see in the natural world must have come into existence through natural forces. So whether you're a geologist looking at the material on a riverbank, or you're a zoologist watching a zebra in the Serengeti through binoculars, or you're a laboratory assistant looking at life forms through a microscope, or you're an astronomer looking at various stellar objects or planetary objects, everything, the assumption goes, must have come into existence through natural forces because we're the first advanced race in the universe. We didn't build any of that stuff. It must be natural. So the question is never asked because of this false premise that we're the first advanced race in the universe. The question is never asked by earth sciences, space sciences, biological sciences people, is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? So that's the problem. It's the premise that we're the first advanced race in the universe, which is farcical on the face of it. The first advanced race? Please. We are on our way to becoming advanced. We are not that advanced compared to the races that already exist and have been here for millions, billions, and maybe trillions of years. So let's look at the material. We can see that it's not natural. And you say, but look at the wonderful texturing on the top. It must be from erosion. Okay, well you say that because that's what the geologists always say. No matter what the surface is, it's from erosion. So this is like water rippling for a geologist. This is water rippling. But it's exactly the same as the texturing on the artificial clay stones in Bosnia. So they took clay out from this whole area, so this was never meant to be seen. This is all structural. So as far as the ancients were concerned, nobody was going to walk on this.
And you think the patterns were also made artificially?
Well, what do you think?
Definitely. It looks like some tools were used for this event because they're also so similar. Do they stack up or is just one layer of this stuff?
Well, let's look at as it goes down, you see how it steps up. See how it steps up a little bit and then it steps up a little bit and it steps up?
Over here?
Yeah. It's like they're supporting it from below by stepping it up a little. So here's the step up right here. And it keeps doing that.
Ah, so yeah. So little
steps up to 2.5, 3 inches maybe. And it keeps stepping up. We see the same thing right here. And we see this on Vratnica as well, same thing. As it goes down, it steps up. So it's like this incredible engineered structural layer. And so we are little by little gaining more knowledge. This owner of this private land right below the road. Kako ide? Super dobro. Šta ima novo?
Ima svašta.
Kamena.
Ima kamena.
Large
To je to.
construction stones. Wow. And they're just excavating their land here.
Pa ja.
So, lijepa žena excavating lupatum. And the lovely ancient construction stones have been revealed by their hard work. Wow. Glina.
Ja, genau.
Samo glina ili...
Ima dve, tri vrste gline. Ima bijela glina, ima glina ona brown, vezivo, čvrsto vezivo tkivo, kojim su vezani blokovi izzidani, odnosno pravljena piramida.
Dobro.
Ovaj dio sad otkriva sasvim drugi položaj nego što je prikazano na onim prethodnim slikama koliko ja vidim. Moguće je da je sasvim drugi oblik piramide.
Super.
Tako da ovaj dio već više ovdje nema nastavak.
Aha.
Što je moguće, ne znam, možda je nestao negdje taj komad ili je eventualno kraj piramide otprilike možda za 1 metar.
Fantastično.
Ovo pokazuje jedan sloj koji je površinski, a ovo dolazi drugi sloj. Dole sad, ja mislim da imaju još 3-4, ne znam tačno. I evo, našao sam i nekakav kristal sad, prije 10-ak minuta, pa bože moj. Dole, a treba sutra doći, ja mislim, sutra će doći ovdje na predavanje nekako sa nekom ekspedicijom. Pa sam ga trebao upoznat sa ovim. On za ovo ne zna. Ovaj položaj sada ovog dijela piramide dovodi nas do novih saznanja. Do novih saznanja o piramidi i o položaju njenom. Jer ovo sad, kako ona ide, kako je postavljena, po ovom se da zaključiti da je to sasvim drugi položaj piramide. Tako da ne znam je li ovo kraj piramide ili, odnosno početak. Jer ovdje više ne postoji blok kojim se nastavlja. Istina, ovi ostali postoje, imaju veziva za dole sad. Šta je tu, kako je, ne znam, da možda neko nije izvadio komad.
I'm going to translate every single thing that you
Ja se
said.
ne razumijem u te materijale.
Dobro, well, and we see all these layers, but we also see another layer of stone of the smaller rightward
Vidite
leaning.
te taloge i to. To su razne strukture materijala.
And we see soft clay, glina i kamen.
Sve
Glina.
kamen. Pogledajte sad ovu strukturu. Gledajte, ovaj kamen. On je ovako presječen, no međutim sastavni dio, vidite kako je urađen. To sad ne može da uradi naša civilizacija, nije u stanju da uradi sa pomagalima. A šta je tad bilo, ja ne znam. Na koji način su ovo izveli? To je ipak specijalnost nekakva, materijali su to jako teški, tvrdi, teški za obradu. Uglavnom, ovo je neka visoka tehnologija rađena. Visoka tehnologija.
Koliko godina, how many years old, civilizacija?
Pa ja mislim 30.000 godina. 30-ak, možda i više. Možda i više.
Dobro. Puno radi.
Pomalo.
Dobro.
Pomalo.
I just want to get some photos of this texturing because the kamena has a little bit of a wave to it on the top, as it always does. This deep, non-regular gouging, which I call texturing, is not rippling from water. So here we have, obviously, layered construction material with soft clay between for earthquake mitigation and for thermal insulation, sound insulation. Just looking at the texturing that they always do on the top. They could make it flat if they wanted, but I mean smooth. It's a flat slope, but the stones aren't smooth. And we continually find this texturing over and over again. We also see a slight stepping, so this is slightly taller. This is slightly taller. This is slightly taller, which you'd expect. This is slightly taller. Right here you can see how it's just a little bit taller on the right, so that it helps to keep the one above. And this is just slightly taller on the left, so it keeps one above from coming down. And they've done that with the concrete as well up there on other excavation sites that the foundation has uncovered with volunteers. But these are super volunteers, volontieri, privat kuće, private house, willing to give us their time and labor to help the foundation discover the truth about our past. I want to keep the leaf on it. I like the leaf. But I don't like this plastic bag. Hold on. But we can see this dramatic gouging, which is not rippling. So the people who say that these are from lake beds or riverbeds are incorrect. This is gouging. And we have tool marks on stones. I will insert them here. And in fact, this gouging might also itself be tool marks. We don't know exactly how they did it. But you can see this incredible fantastično texturing. We've got to call it texturing because it's purposeful.
Valovito.
Volovito.
Valovito.
Texturing, volovito. Dobro. Hvala puno.
Ja.
And the good people of Bosnia come through once more by inviting us onto their land. You, me, and all of the internet are welcome here in Bosnia, where there are very few fences. Mostly it's just land, and if you walk onto somebody's property, they say, "Would you like some coffee?" They do not say, "Can I help you?" which is Californian for, "What are you doing on my property?" This is Jock Doubleday reporting for Archaeological Park Foundation. And we're just going to end on this one shot of rightward leaning construction material on the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. I hope you all Have a scientific day. The reason they textured the tops of their sections, their vertically defined sections, right? Vertical faces and straight lines or something resembling straight lines, not perfectly straight, is that they wanted a certain roughness on the tops. So you can see how deeply gouged this is, deeply textured. It didn't matter to them what the specific design was. They weren't actually making designs, they were just making earthquake resistant surfaces to their crystalline concrete sections. So all this is obvious when we ask the question, is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? I mean, you can see wherever we look, we see evidence of building. How did the geologists miss it? Because they believe that we're the first race in the universe. So look at the texturing. Geologists must say, academically trained geologists must say that this is water erosion, water rippling, right? But obviously that's not the case. Water rippling would be much more regular and much less deeply gouged. Straight lines everywhere you look, along with the texturing of the tops. The seemingly random texturing of the tops, because none of it's exactly the same as the texturing on another top, right? And so, different section faces, different section surfaces have different texturing designs on them. Now, you'll also notice that the sizes and shapes of these sections are all dramatically different. So we don't have rectangular blocks, fully rectangular blocks. We have a lot of diagonal blocks here, right? Diagonal shaped. These are semi-rectangular, but then they've got this non-rectangular side here, but they have some rectangular feeling to them. But then you've got this, which is a polygonal section, which is the strongest building when you make it polygonal, and lots of diagonals in there. So here we have diagonals. Here we have diagonals. This rather square building is weak. So generally you don't have that. Generally you have asymmetrical sectioning with diagonally demarcated surfaces. So you can see how this section is small here, it gets wider and wider and wider. Let's see if we can see that from another angle. So you can see what they were doing. They used asymmetrical sectioning for the same reason that they used texturing of the tops of their sections. The reason that the true ancients, as I call them, who built the continents, used asymmetrical sectioning, which is another way of fooling the geologists of our time, because they think that something that's built must have similarly sized and similarly shaped building blocks. Well, the ancients knew, the true ancients who built the continents, obviously, once we asked the question, they knew that for earthquake mitigation, asymmetrical sectioning, different size and different shaped sections, was the key. And then on top of that, they deeply gouged their surfaces in different ways. If all the gouging was the same, it would be less strong. So the gouging is slightly different everywhere you look. For the last point, I've never been here before, so I'm just seeing these things as we go. you can see that this is a 45-degree angle, that the primary angle of construction is 45. So the flow of the river is that way. And here's the 45-degree angle, which I've documented on 3 continents. So that's the primary angle of construction. There are other angles. So there's this angle, which is virtually a parallel, but then you have this 45, which is primary. 45, primary. 45. So you can see the 45-degree angle sectioning. That's what they used, presumably for structural strength. It has to be the answer. They built to last. They were building to last. So they use 45-degree angle sectioning. Now, oftentimes we see right angle sectioning mixed with their 45s. This is still 45s here. Let's see what we got over here. This looks like essentially a right angle. And that juxtaposes with this, which is nearly parallel, but not quite. So there are other angles. I'm just saying that the primary angle of construction you'll see across the world in riverbeds and creek beds is 45. So that's about it. I mean, we've diagnosed the crystalline concrete, the regular sided, that's my signature move. I pat the regular sided surface of the sections because I want you to see what I'm talking about, to feel what I'm talking about. See that? That's not a crack. A crack would not leave a regular sided surface. Now I want to be clear also, let me get one that's in the light. Now I want to be clear that this surface is not perfectly smooth, like a Greek or a Roman smoothness to the side here. If it were, it would be less strong in the construction of the hills. They left it rough to some degree, just like the top is rough, but the top is much more corrugated. They left the sides rough, even though they're regular, so that they would abrade the section next to them, so that this came out of the hill next to the Colorado here. So there would have been a section that matched this curve to the left there. And the section next to it would have, in an earthquake, would have abraded against this, and the roughness would have not only kept the hill strong by helping the pieces, the sections, to move less, but it would have created soil. So every time these abrade, they create soil for us. How about that? Hashtag ecological terraforming. So it's all obvious once we ask the question. Anybody can see it. But we've been told that all of these lines are cracks and fractures. Are you kidding me? And yet everyone believes it because the professors are quite serious and quite somber in their lectures, and they know what's going on, right? So this is genius building, by the way. Look at that. Very, very strong. If it was perfectly right angle, if both of these were right angle, right? It wouldn't be as strong, but it's wedged in. It's genius. And it's a small section next to two, in between two massive sections. I mean, these are huge. And notice there's no cracks in these sections. They're completely strong. So there are no cracks and fractures here. The sections remain strong, and they come out perfectly strong, perfectly integral, right? There's no cracks and fractures in these. The only place that they have a break is where the break is obviously not a crack or a fracture. This is obviously building here, and everywhere else it's remained strong for thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of years. No cracks, no fractures, no random jagged lines. Perfectly strong, integral sections, all this stuff. Look at the massive texture on this beauty. It's amazing. That's amazing. Looks like a sandy beach with footprints in it, but it's texturing. Look at that. Look at the texturing. So that the section above it could stay strong in an earthquake. Really good building. So here we see the layering, which geology would call sedimentation, which is total nonsense. I mean, all we have to do is look at the evidence, and you can see that these little pebbles The rocks are packed in to what is an eroded layer. Now you can see that there's clay in there. So it's not fully eroded yet, but this was a soft layer. So what they did was they oftentimes alternated hard and soft layers, because the soft layers of clay or of gypsum, wood, or limestone would help to take the kinetic energy of an earthquake, so that the hill or mountain or creek bank or river bank would move a little bit. So the soft layers would help all these hard layers stay in place. So the hard layers, the crystalline concrete, not natural rock, obviously, this layer keeps in place the softer layer, and the softer layer mitigates the earthquake kinetic energy. We see that in Bosnia, and that's how they built all those structures. And I'll show you some alternating hard and soft layers in photos that I took there. So I was there for 23 months, and that's how I saw the building of the continents. It became obvious that the Bosnian pyramids is a late-stage terraforming project. It's not like the other pyramids on the planet. It's completely different. The structures are the landscape. They're not set on the landscape like other pyramids are. They were built by the ancients who built the continents, the true ancients. Then along comes the groups of people called the ancients who built the pyramids. So I look at the pyramid builders as the ancients, but they came later. They were long after the continent builders, but there was some late stage terraforming, continental repair by the true ancients. And the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, which was built in 34,000 to 35,000 years ago, is a late stage terraforming project. There's no doubt about that. So they come and repair places that they want to repair, or they hide things they want to hide. Vanessa Lyle says there's a temple complex, much older, below the pyramid complex in Bosnia. So in some way, we could say they were trying to hide the temple complex from us and keep us from accessing it. And no one's found the temple complex yet, but she says that's where it is. And she's basing her answers on the Pleiadian knowledge base from her guide, who is an inhabitant of Era, a planet that orbits Taygeta in the Pleiades. So, perhaps the Bosnian Pyramid Complex was a late-stage hiding project. They were trying to hide something from what they knew was coming, which is a bunch of barbarians, us, coming along and not knowing what the heck was going on, and maybe misusing some of this pyramidal technology or other technology, crystal technology, that she says is below there. She says that there were rites that went on in the temple below the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, and that these rites had to do with crystals, and that they had large crystals, and the priest, I guess you would call this person, would help someone to transfer his life memories to a crystal. And that's what was happening down there. Now, I don't know if us having that knowledge would be dangerous, but it looks like they wanted to keep the entire temple from us. Who knows what else went on there, you know? Notice the diagonal sectioning, okay? Notice the regular sided, not necessarily right angle section face, but regular sided. In fact, the fact that it has a little bump and a little bump right here makes it stronger in an earthquake. And a little bump right here makes it stronger. We don't know what we're doing in modern times. When we build, we just build with bricks that are all the same size. It's total nonsense. It's ridiculous. So here you see the 45-degree angle sectioning. That's a 45 to the flow. And there's another 45 to the flow. So this is a gold mine. So as the sun descends on December 9th, 2024, we can feel good about having spent time together diagnosing the continental terraforming of the true ancients, the advanced races who built Terra's 6 continents. I hope everyone has a scientific day. Just an addendum, as I'm walking back to the trail down here, you can see right here the alternating hard and soft layers. The soft layers have largely been eroded out, but you can see how they stacked it. Hard layer with a textured top, and on top of those textured tops is the soft clay, right? And the soft clay mitigates the earthquakes, keeps those hard layers in place, and the hard layers keep the soft layers in place. The etymology of clay is glue. In the Proto-Indo-European language, gley, G-L-E-Y, meant both clay and glue. So in the past, in the distant past, clay was glue, and that's what they used in between these layers. So we think of clay as dirt, and that's not how they regarded it. It was glue to them. And clay is exactly what the true ancients who built the late-stage terraforming complex, known as the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, used to make their artificial clay stones. They're pure 100% clay. There is some information out there online that says these are sandstone in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, but that's nonsense. They're not sandstone. They're artificial clay stones, 100% clay, because clay is glue.